Hello, this is Understanding Elon Musk, and I want to talk about a little bit about management. In my previous role in the Netherlands, as I was a kind of manager, because the head of automatization IT left, and I became his follow-up, and I got first 2 people under me, then it grew to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you know, IT became bigger. And at that time IT was, we had a company with only phones. We had not internet, so I had to build an internet connection, so I had to look for a company that did internet. At the time in the Netherlands it was one of the first like hobby kind of internet companies, but they became very big and they were very liberal, and you could do a lot of things with them and you got a lot of possibilities. So we joined that internet company, and for our internet. So we removed all the telephones, because we used to build. We had like a terminal you could phone in the server, the mainframe. So we all changed that to Windows, and so I was part of that piece, the transformation. And you can imagine if you're an engineer and you have to move a terminal-based system to a server client system for a whole company, and also changing all the software that was then written in Unix, in a real Unix version, not Linux. And I moved it to a Linux, more open version Unix, and later to Linux. So you can imagine that if you are an IT guy at that time, and you have to talk to sales and all other departments, explaining what you are doing, and then looking with, they want of course know how the project is going on, and what is exactly happening. You don't have the time. If you have only a few years the time, also the year 2000 was playing a role. You can imagine you need some manager or some people that manage your daily work, that other managers can communicate with, and you just focus as engineer on the work you want to progress as soon as possible to this new system. So I saw how was his name? David Sachs also talking about this with PayPal and also politics. So what is happening? You have this, what I also experienced, and now it is very clear, everybody will know it. In that time there were only a few engineers, because there were not enough engineers. So even receptionists or people that were just secretary became IT manager or IT person, or just coding in, just typing in first like information from customers, and later grow into the company to become more an IT role, because there were not enough IT specialists. And also the problem with the people that were in the IT that really studied for it, they could not grade up to management, because nobody can replace you. We don't have engineers, so you stay at engineers, and we find a manager, a person who studied history or economics, or it doesn't matter what, and place it above of you, and if you can work with each other, that's it. He just has to manage it. It doesn't have to be an expert at all about computers, because you make the decisions and you talk with him, that's it. But that was the big mistake in the whole IT development in the year 2000. Because what happens is, these people that were placed above the IT group as managers, they were sometimes also professional managers. So they MBA, and they were really did how to manage it. And of course they have some, they will learn to pick up the skills of the IT, what's happening below them. So they study a little bit about IT. Oh, this is what is happening with this software, I understand it, and now we have to buy the new, for example, the new OS version. And then they think, wait, and they talk about it, and they look with friends about it. Of course they have their own friends, and they say, oh, other companies using this Unix version, so let's switch to this Unix version. And because I know at the other companies how it is working, so we do it like this and this, like the other company, and of course it works the same for our company. And there it goes wrong, because the guy who is doing the transformation and he switches to another Unix version, he knows exactly what he wants. And if this guy above him says, no, we don't use this Unix version, but we use this Unix version, he says, wait a minute, then I have to research everything, then I have to know if it is possible. So, what's going on here? Huh? Do you know it better than me? Because I'm the engineer and you is just somebody. No, I am a manager, I decide and I have the direction of the higher management, and you have to listen because I'm above you. And this engineer says, okay, okay. So he does what the manager says, and it fails. It doesn't work because, of course, the engineer was right that it didn't work with that version. But the manager didn't know that. They said, but I will learn of it. This is just a fail experience. Fail and then we will learn. Let's try another Unix version. What did you say? Oh, the guy is already gone. Why is he gone? Oh, because, the project failed. Doesn't matter. We'll just use another version. And again, it fails. And this is the excuse of failing management. And they don't take responsibility. They don't take it, I was wrong and the engineer was right. No, the engineer is already gone because he can get everywhere another job because there are not enough engineers. So this is also the problem of the higher management, that they didn't see this. So now in my case what happened, we had this, if you know a little bit about Unix and sharing of files, in the old days there was something called Samba. Samba was a file system, sharing system. And there was also for our Unix system, we had also a file system, FSN or something, file system, file sharing system. And we had a real Unix system, so I had to compile and install Samba to make it work. And this FS version, this file sharing system, was already on the system, of course. But if you want to activate it, you have to pay money. And Samba was, of course, open source and free. And I thought, in the future we will use a Linux version, so we have to go to Samba. And also for the specific ways of the database to open the files and keep them open while they are remotely, the drivers on another server. We had a database, a kind of database server, or a server where we had our files, and the server where the application was running, and it was executing this data with a database manager. So there has to be an open file, so it has to update this file continuously without closing it or without any problems. And this is a special option you can do with Samba to make this shared file open while you are manipulating it. So also to so this was a problem for that that issue. And I also wanted to use this system in a later version of Unix and a later version of the software. But we have, of course, a manager. He bought, of course, he signed all the contracts of this this temporary of this first step into Unix, because I went in 2 or 3 steps to replace the Unix version. We first had a very old Unix version that was built on terminals. Then I went to a Unix version where I could use login with a client, a terminal client, instead of a real physical terminal with a cable. So I think PPT or something, Pity or Putty. We used Putty to connect to this server, and for that we also had to change some terminal settings. And so this was the first step, because I could not directly go to the version that was really server client based. And it was also web based a little, and that was too big a step. So first I did the immigration for all the screens from the real terminal to Putty. That was a terminal based application, and so also that was also the good thing. We could get rid of all those hardware terminals, and we could rewire the whole company. So that was the first step, and then because of also money wise, then later we will use I have all the time to use the real server client application, and that I will use on an open source platform. So we get rid of the cost of the Unix version, and then we are open source, and then only we pay for the package. Previously we had to pay for the package, we have to pay for the terminal connections. You can imagine in that day Unix, you pay for the terminal, the amount of terminal connections, the amount of telephone connections. You pay for everything, for all the extensions in the package, communication, the disk space you use. So all this was built, and for the first step was to get rid of this, reduce the cost. So for one of the most important thing of the package was that I also split the application from one machine and the data storage in another machine, and that was a little bit strange. That was in that time not done. It was not a database, it were files. So, and I put an Informix database manager on top of it. So that were dot files and index files in that time, and that, if you had Informix database manager on top of it, it looks like a database. And you could use Excel and Microsoft Office stuff to query the data directly from the application. And that was revolutionary. Nobody had this. This was really, and also you could update, if you updated like a crazy amount of serial numbers, we wanted to add to the package, you would think, you would use SQL or something and push it in or something. No, what we did, we just did a merge or append to the file. So we got all these numbers. We use Unix commands. We line them out nicely. We just add them to the file. Yeah. Then regenerate the index files. So we reconstruct the database table for that added information, and that took only a few hours. Boom, and then the whole database was updated, and we had all the serial numbers of the customer, and it can be hundreds. We had the airport, for example. There were a few 10,000 new computers added in our system. Normally it would take, if we would take a SQL code to do that, in that time, with that slow machines, we are talking a 268 processor, it would take 4 days. So it is a weekend, and one day we cannot work because we have to add all those numbers. But then it took only a few hours and then half a day to re-index the database. So to make this all work and make it better, so I split my idea was to split the data from the database server from the application server. And we used this. We needed this Samba because we needed to pump the data over in that time coax cables. We used later we used Cat5, but Cat6 even. But at that time it was coax cable. So we needed this connection, and we used Samba for this. So I already saw that it was working. We found some problems with open files, but I already said if an open file it was during the time that you are typing new data in it. It had to update directly to from one server and then move to the database server, and that was an open file, and that could give some issues. But we found out it was a special setting for Samba. We had to recompile the software for the Samba. We made a special version. Then we recompiled the kernel for that Unix version, and we could use the Samba. But we had at that moment, of course, a manager. And this manager thought, don't do that, that is compiling Unix and compiling software, it is not standard, I don't know what's going on. Why don't we use FSN or something, FSV? Because this is what the Unix is giving, and they say it will work. I said, yeah, you're not certain that it works? Yeah, I talked to blah, 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 you know, straight, and I know he's not an engineer. So we said, okay, let's test it. So the test I knew already that would fail. So we tested in 5 minutes, and it didn't work. You are doing something wrong. Huh? I'm doing something wrong? Yes, yes, yes. I said, show me how you can. No, I don't know about it because I'm not an engineer, but you are doing something wrong. You want to push Samba. I said, Samba is free and this is cost extra money. This costs extra money. Yeah. So that was the problem. So he didn't understand, or he just wanted to use this pre-sold part of the Unix version, and he didn't believe that Samba would work. Of course, we tested it and we convinced it, but what the bad thing about what happened after that was, he said that I was sabotaging it and that his way was the right way, and it escalated. So after a while I said, okay, if you think you can do it better, hire somebody else. And he was, no, because of the CEO, blah, blah. So I went to the owner CEO, it was a friend of me, of course, and I told him the situation, and he said, yeah, I tried to talk it out with him, because he was the real manager. He worked in the French company, he was a manager, and I was not, of course, no manager, I was just an engineer. And after a few months, I thought also that my other colleagues were a little bit sabotaging me about this question, and even the guy who helped me, he said, yeah, I don't know. I said, okay, now I know. So in the morning I went to the owner and I said, you can do two things. You can fire me and and hire somebody else for me and do that work and do the transformation, continue the work that I did, or you fire him and let me finish it off and let me make this this transformation, and then we do the transformation further and decide then. So I really was like, I don't mind, I can quit the job now. So I pushed the owner, and the owner understood very quickly that this job is more important than this manager. So he shoved the manager and he made him an engineer like me, but he was no engineer. So, but the good thing is later we became very good friends, because he was not in this responsibility role anymore, and we made the secretary, one secretary was somebody, we made her the head of IT, and she later also became a problem, and especially when those two guys, ex-manager and this manager, were fighting against me, and then the story is different. But the good thing is that I could move this transformation over, so we went from this terminal system to this putty version. Then I still had the force to move from the client server. And then we had to go to web, and then the owner said, wait a minute, this is we have to do something else. And then I got a little bit pushed aside, because there was also some space, because he didn't see the pressure anymore about the 2000 year. And so he said, okay, Henry, you stay under me, you do innovation research and do your work there. Let those guys do the maintenance, because you cannot do it anymore. It's too much work. The department became too big, because we had internet, we had to do the support of people, we had to do the support of the engineers that were at home and had problems with their computers. So the department became bigger and bigger and bigger, you can understand, and I could not do it all. So they said, let those guys do it, and you just focus on now on the innovation. Later, a year later, we hired a Java expert, and we were planning to rewrite the whole software. So that was an idea for me, because I showed the owner what the future was of the software, and he was okay with it, and we got some people from Australia to show that it was a good idea to modernize the whole system. And of course you can imagine they tried to sabotage it again, but that's another story. But what I just wanted to tell you, this manager, he thought he was doing, of course, the good thing, but he didn't know the problem. He of course later understand that I knew the software. I was running the software at home. I understand everything of it, and also the hardware and the software, and he could probably not fathom the fact that somebody can do that. And he was amazed that I could do that. Later he was very happy that these two big projects worked, and everything went of course perfectly, and he could say a little bit, yeah, but I was also manager. But later, of course, again he thought, oh no, now after 2-3 years working here I understand the system as good as Henry. Or no, of course not, because he didn't program any line. He later tried to do programming, but that failed, of course. And then we went to Java, and that was totally different software, so he couldn't even understand it, and then we shoved him at the end really out of the picture. But then the other manager, the secretary who became manager, became a problem a little bit, but later it all came good. That was the good thing. But I think the managers were thinking that they had the responsibility, because of course the CEO was pressuring them, the program had to go fast, other the departments managers were also pressuring them, but they didn't understand that if you are there, the whole company was running on the software. It was an RAP software, it was really from logistics, sales, everything was running on this software. And the guy who was maintaining and had control of this software was me and 2 other guys, maybe 1 other guy. And we were rolling this whole software out that it was working perfectly. I worked, my busiest time was that if people were gone from the company was closed, I was doing maintenance, I did updates, software updates. So I worked in the weekends, I worked at vacations. So I had a lot of over hours, of course, because of this work out of the normal working time. But that was the only way to do it. And sometimes they complained that I had too much free time, but And that time there was a possibility to pay out your hours, and at the end I got the whole, I could buy a server. I got a server from the company at my home, so I could run in shadow mode if something really goes wrong with the company, and I could continue programming at home. So I had a small server farm at my home that kept me warm during the winter nights. I didn't have to turn on my heating in the winter because I had a server running and that heat the whole house, so that was also nice. But yeah, the problem was management, and also what Zach said, what David Zach said. The managers that don't have, they think they do the good thing, of course, and they have to have the responsibility, but they don't take the responsibility. If they would understand that the project fails, they need to know why did it fail and why did this guy said that it would fail. So for next time I listen to him. No, they don't listen to him. They think again that they think they know it better. And this is frustrating for engineers. And this is for I can imagine if you have like an agile team, this problem is gone because your agile team is managing also the product and aftercare and everything. But if you can imagine that you have manager structure above all those agile teams, and that we have the responsibility, and in reality if it goes wrong they are not there, it's their fault, not my responsibility, but they tell you they have the responsibility and that they have to, the engineers have to listen to them because they are important and they are communicating with the customer and the management, and they are responsible and they're so important for the company. But if there is something wrong, they say, oh no, it's not my fault, it's that team, get another team, or well, I learned something, I learned something, let me work at other department. I go from IT to logistics and logistic manager. Oh, comes at IT, and let me shift all roles every 2-4 years. That was also something very strange, that they shifted roles from managers over the company. So the logistic became the IT became the sales became, so rotating the management. So even the management became even more stupid. So what you find as an engineer, you find the guys who are the real logistic person that knows exactly what's going on there. You look for the financial guy who knows everything there, and you look for the help desk who knows everything, and the sales guy who knows everything. You don't look at the manager because the manager doesn't know, because he's just sitting there for 2-3 years and he shifted to another department of the company. So that is very, the manager level, the company is always like a little bit strange, and they think they rule the world and they have to do a responsibility to the CEO. And if the CEO doesn't communicate with the engineer and the lower levels, he will never know, and he will trust what the management says. But I was so lucky that in my first company, the big company I worked to, that the CEO talked with engineers and me, and we became good friends. And I advised him at some where they had problems. I also looked for fraud and other problems that were going on in the company, and I was a trusted right hand of the company and helped her with other issues. But I also worked for other companies, like bigger companies, like multinational companies, and there of course this can never happen. The CEO cannot go to an engineer and say, hey, what's going on really on your department? No way. So they have to trust on the managers, and there's not only one manager. For some companies, multinationals, there are 5 manager layers. So if the CEO really wants to know what exactly is going on with a specific thing in the software or in the company, he has to go to almost to the work floor, and he has to step over 5 managers. And if the engineer wants to tell something to the CEO that he finds a problem and nobody listens to him, he has to step over 5 levels of managers. Now, if he does it after the 3rd one, he's fired already. So you can imagine they don't like it, the management. And of course the management living in this Valhalla, that everything is okay because the highest level under the highest person is of course a yes man. So, oh yes, everything is going okay, the little fire behind you, the whole company is on fire, but the little fire, don't worry, we have everything under control. This is so often happened with projects. The project is okay, we need a little bit more money, some consultants, we have some bugs, everything is okay. End of the year, it fails, yeah, well, we have some problems. Why? Too difficult to understand, and the manager, okay, it's your responsibility, next year is better, okay, I learned something. and of course they maybe move some managers or they rotate some managers, and the same thing happens again because they don't listen to the people that really know what's going on. So you have the people with the knowledge and you have the manager role, and these managers think they can take over the role of the engineers, of the knowledge people, and the CEO of the head, the people of the company think that the manager is at the same level as the engineer, and that is the big fault of the old way of running companies. And Elon Musk, he goes directly to the manager. He goes directly to the rocket or to the product and look at it. He is driving the car. He's looking at the FSD software. Oh, why is this always going wrong? Oh, he goes to the rocket. Why is this metal thing always... He really goes in touch with the engineers. He goes to the groups and asks another group to look at it. Oh, this is the solution. Oh, why don't you try this and this also? He is really going to the lower level. So he skips all those manager layers. And I think even there are no manager layers at the companies at Elon Musk. He has probably his up and maybe a little bit a layer under him that controls the group. If there is a problem, they report to him. And if they don't report fast enough, he fires him. And I think that's what happened with the rocket engines of, maybe they, not rocket engines, yeah, but the rocket engines, the Merlin rocket engines had some problems or something. And this guy was hiding the problems and he fired them directly. Starlink, the same thing, was also something. He didn't report fast enough, fire. Because he wants to know what is going on. And it doesn't matter that you don't know, as management-wise, you have to take responsibility. As long as you tell him fast, he can react. If you try to hide it and you think you are a perfect manager, that is not the case, he is irritated by it. And this is the lucky thing for all the companies that Elon Musk is running, is that as an engineer, I think, and as an engineer group, you can go directly to the highest person and you can correct the way the company goes. Or if there is a problem for a solution, you go to the CEO or to Elon Musk and say, okay, we need a solution, we have to go this way or this way. Can you help us making a decision? He says, okay, I will make two groups that goes to those directions, you go to that direction, and we will find what is the direction as soon as possible. And poof, after a while it is solved and you know how to continue and you can, the company goes ahead. And in reality, if this is not this way, in the old way, the manager has to make 15 management meetings. They have to really know that it's really a problem. Then they need to get the resources. They have to